Well, hi, everybody. This was going to be a weird show to begin with, but unfortunately, we have a situation where we're having technical difficulties with Matt, so we're not be able to pick up the sound. I can't hear him. He's able to hear me, but I can't hear him. So I guess what we're going to do here is I'm going to take some calls tonight. It was going to be a quick show anyway, because I need to be out of here in about 30 minutes from now. So we're going to take calls. As always, you guys know how to reach us, but really quickly, the topics on today is we wanted to talk about, there's a huge recruiting weekend this weekend, the first of the series of 3 big weekends for USC's recruiting. And on top of that, there's an article by Matt Hayes that showed up where he was talking about, from unnamed sources, that Lincoln Riley's been trying to get out of the LSU game for 2 years. So that and your calls coming up next.
Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend.
Well, you guys, I'm not sure how we're going to do this tonight without calls. So phone lines are open. And the number here is a list. Oh, you can't even see it. My bad. How am I going to do that? Let's move this. Okay. That's going to have to work for right now. So the number, you guys, right now is up over my shoulder, 888-997-4539. Give me a call. Let me know what you think about the Matt Hayes article with him talking about, basically USC and Lincoln Riley were trying to get out of the game with LSU. And that's what he's saying. He's not listing any name sources. Matter of fact, in the article, it talks about the fact that people over at LSU said no comment. We've heard nothing from USC. As expected, Lincoln Riley's not going to make a comment. And then and nothing from Jennifer Cohen. But there have been accusations that USC was trying to get out of this game. And I'd like to hear from you guys. What do you guys think? Why? Is it true? I think there might be some truth to this, but the fact that I think it's being overblown, that USC has been trying for 2 years to get out of this thing and is unable to do it, as if they're afraid. That's going to be the big issue going forward for it. But someone let me know. Let's take our first call. Let's just have a conversation about it. So, hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
It's Jackson Johnson from Meridianville, Alabama. How you doing tonight, Tim?
I'm doing great, Jackson. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Where's Matt? I hope he's not feeling sick. I hope he's doing okay.
Yeah, he's fine. It's just we're having an issue. For some reason, I'm not able to hear through StreamYard. He can hear me. My mic's working, but for some reason, the settings, we weren't able to hear each other. So instead of having a situation where I'm talking to Matt's talking to me, and we were going to have a really quick show to begin with, he decided maybe he would bow out and I would take calls tonight. So that's the situation. Yeah, I think I had to do something with this. Yeah, boring you guys right now, but I was using a different software, and I think when I used a different software for telecommunications earlier in the week, I think there's a little ghost in the machine. So, but what's on your mind?
Well, the article that you were talking about from Matt Hayes, I was like, oh no, that I don't think that's true about USC backing out. Because I've seen USC schedules from the past several seasons throughout my lifetime. They have always had the toughest non-conference schedules. They always pat on an Ohio State or a Texas or this school here, that school there. And yeah, those are the type of schedules I always love seeing, especially from Blue Bloods. I often get onto my team, the Crimson Tide, for not having a tough enough non-conference schedule. But I think that's going to be changing in the future seasons per FBSschedules.com.
Yeah, well, I don't think it seems like it's a continued narrative that you've had about Lincoln Riley being afraid. There was people talking about that Lincoln Riley's afraid. The reason why he didn't go to LSU is because he's afraid to enter the SEC. There's this narrative they just keep continuing. I think this one just goes into it. I don't doubt, though, that there were some concerns at USC looking at the schedule, looking at going to the Big Ten and what might happen in the Big Ten. As you're seeing, USC will be playing Wisconsin, at home, Penn State at home, traveling to Michigan, and then we always have the game every year against Notre Dame. adding the game against LSU made a very tough schedule for USC to get through in the season. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I can see there could have been concerns. My question is how much of it was overplayed and how much of it, in the article, it just the way the wording of the article is where I have the issue. It's not beyond the realm of possibility that at some point 2 years ago, Lincoln Riley looked at his roster, looked at the situation and said, wow, 2 years from now, we're going to be ready to play. And he might have talked about it. My problem with the article is we're to believe this site and unnamed sources that this happened. And so it just seems a little bit, I don't know. It would have been nice if at least one person could have confirmed this besides the author of the article. But, it is what it is. And people are going to believe what they want to believe. There's the people that are always going to hate Lincoln Riley. They're going to take shots and say, oh, look, he was too afraid of the SEC. That's no wonder he didn't want to play LSU. I mean, it's just a little bit convenient that it kind of goes through the same narrative. And let's face it, right now, this is the hardest time. And don't get me wrong, after this weekend, USC has a big recruiting weekend and recruiting's opening up again. There's going to be a lot of news. For the last couple of weeks, it's been a really slowed down cycle. And one of the great ways to get some clicks is to take shots at Lincoln Riley. And I think that's what partially this could have been.
Yeah, I think people that are like taking shots at Coach Riley, they're honestly just throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and they think, oh, one bad year automatically makes the coach horrible. And obviously, anybody that's really thinking that Coach Riley is not a good coach, they obviously do not watch college football whatsoever.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that he is a good coach. It's funny if you say that because I've been listening to, I like the guys over at Cover 3 a lot. I can't remember if it was Bud Elliott. I think it was Bud Elliott. And he basically had Lincoln Riley. I think he was like not even in his top 30 coaches. I mean, that was a bit absurd. But most people have him somewhere snugly between, in the top 10, maybe just out of the top 10. But there is this narrative that he has one bad season. The guy's all he's done really is win double digits every year, number of conference championships when he was with Oklahoma and been in the playoffs, had trips to the playoffs. And people are forgetting all those things and just looking at what he walked into at USC. Us USC fans know the state of the roster and the situation. And Lincoln Riley said it himself that maybe he'd done himself a disservice by having that really great year 2 years ago. That team outperformed. And, in football, sometimes the ball bounces the right way. You pick up one or two wins. Last year, the ball bounced the wrong way and they picked up one or two more losses. So it's going to be interesting to see. He's going to have a hell of a schedule. And that's what this whole article was about. USC facing a pretty darn difficult schedule and got to be one of the more difficult, if not the most difficult out of conference schedule in the country this year, facing Notre Dame and LSU. So it'll be interesting to see if more comes out of this. I don't know if this is just, again, something for clickbait. Maybe at some point, maybe Lincoln Riley made the comment or someone did reach out saying, hey, can we reschedule this or get rid of it? And then this guy's turning it into like where USC's been desperately, the way it's worded, it makes it seem like USC's been desperate for 2 years to get out of it. And I'm finding that probably a little hard to believe.
Yeah, because because once again, like all those people that believe that USC wanted to back out of this game, they obviously have not looked at the past non-conference seasons of the past 20 years. And one thing that has irked me from Wednesday, I was looking on my account and I saw Colin Cowherd just running his mouth about how, USC Notre Dame shouldn't be playing. And it's like, come on. That is top-notch college football rivalry. That is college football royalty, Notre Dame, USC. But when he admitted that he's not a traditionalist, I thought to myself, well, that explains why he doesn't believe in one of the most amazing college football rivalries in all college football. So it tells me Cowherd is a casual viewer of college football. He doesn't spend every week watching. He only watches 1-2 games a day on Saturday. He doesn't watch like Wake Forest, SMU, for example, or like LSU, Florida, or USC versus Maryland. He obviously doesn't watch or try to keep up with every one of the games for his viewers. And luckily for Fox, they didn't hire him to be a college football commentator, because if they did, he would be disastrous at that job.
Well, I mean, I know I'm not. So I disagree. I mean, I don't know, maybe because I have I have a fond place for him. I've been listening to him since he was on radio a long time ago. He's been one of the few voices for West Coast football out there in a world, especially in the ESPN world, where I first heard of him, where nothing happened west of the Mississippi River, actually. So I have enjoyed listening to him throughout the years. I think on this, I kind of see his point. It'll never happen. I actually wrote an article today about it for Trojans Wire. It's not going to happen. USC and Notre Dame their history is so woven together. There's no other rivalry that has as many All-Americans, Heisman Trophy winners, national championships, first round draft picks, overall draft picks outside of that rivalry. On top of it, it's just up there with. Unfortunately, the USC and Notre Dame, they haven't been on the same page. One's been up, one's been down for decades now. But for years, again, that game was. I mean, how many Heisman trophies has that game decided? How many national championships has that game decided? That game's not going anywhere. Notre Dame is too important to USC, and USC is too important to Notre Dame.
Yeah, shockingly, we've never seen Notre Dame USC have a rematch in a bowl game or for like the playoffs, like how we saw like Florida State or Florida State Miami, or some of those rivalries. I would love to see USC Notre Dame have a rematch in the postseason. I don't know if that's going to happen in our lifetime, but we'll wait and see.
Oh, it very well could happen this year. I mean, let's say that USC did. Let's say that we're wrong. Let's say that USC has fixed their issues on the defensive line and offensive line. Their defense has gotten better, and their scoring under Miller Moss is strong enough to keep putting up points in that Lincoln Riley machine that just keeps chugging along no matter who they put back at quarterback. Assuming that, it's not out of the realm of possibility that USC could face them again. It's unlikely, I think, but not impossible. I think, I do believe I'm probably a little more positive on the season than most. I am holding back till I see that first game. I've been burned too many times thinking that USC's figured it out to go ahead and start making bold predictions. But right now, just given what we have and me being even a little bit pessimistic about how much the defense can improve. It's not about early in the season. Even though the tougher games are earlier in the season, what I'm worried about is as the season goes on and there's attrition and there's injury, like that's happened in the past 2 years to USC. Once you get past that first line of guys, there's not a lot of depth back there, especially on the lines. That same situation may happen again this year, especially on the interior defensive line. That's why when I say 9-3, I'm not discarding any of the games as losses for USC, not even at Michigan. I'm not saying that's a loss. I'm saying that later in the season, I'm worried about losses because I think we're going to run out of guys up front. I think that's going to be, it's not like USC in the Pac-12 was playing cupcakes, but just the style of play and the pounding that USC is going to take in the Big Ten. I have concerns if they will have the depth along the defensive line, especially in the interior, to have that quality depth piece and that rotation throughout the year so we don't get very thin at the end of the year.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens for the rest of 2024 season, especially when I get that Lindy's magazine in a few days.
Yeah,
it's going to be amazing.
They're going to be coming out. It's that time of year, right? It's, you're starting to have the big recruiting weekends. You're going to, all the preseason magazines will be coming out, and it'll be a good time. I hope after you get that, Lindy, you call back. We could talk about the Tide. We could talk about SC. But thanks again. I really appreciate you calling in.
Thank you for having me on. And if I ever meet Colin Cowherd, I'll make sure to ask him where Washington State, Oregon State, Cal, Stanford, and the Arizona schools are located, just to test his knowledge on West Coast college football.
He grew up in Washington, so he'll know about Pac-12. He knows his Pac-12 football. All right, thanks again. Talk to you soon, Jackson.
Thanks for having me on, Tim.
So if you guys are just tuning in, we were having some audio issues. I just threw up this random slide here so you guys could access the phone number. We don't really have a picture in the middle that would allow that phone number to be visible, but we'll just roll the calls. I need to get out of here kind of early tonight, but I'll take as many calls. I'll try to speed up as possible. We got 5 in the queue right now. Hello, caller. Thanks for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Tim, it's Adam calling from Georgia. How's it going?
Good, Adam. How are you?
All right, great to talk to you. I just had a couple of brief points. I mean, first, look, Riley is a very, very good coach. I think one of his weaknesses was exposed, namely his failure to focus on defense enough, but he's fixed that. We have a great defensive coordinator, and I think we need to give him an opportunity. I don't think he's afraid of playing LSU. I just think he's realistic when he's looking at the schedule and he's looking at the roster, because you know what? It really is unfair. Look at Ohio State's schedule where they play 8 home games compared to our schedule. It's unfair to Florida when you consider Florida's schedule compared to, say, Ohio State's. So I understand where he's coming from if, in fact, it's true. But the good news, I think, is that, look, if you look at last year, our offense averaged, 41.8 points a game. If we suffered a 25% reduction in offensive output this year, we'd still be averaging 31 a game. Now, our defense last year gave up 34.3 a game. If they improved by only 20% in points per game, they'd only be giving up 27 a game. So I still think there's reason to be optimistic because the improvement that we need is relatively slight. But the schedule strength, particularly the disparity with other schools, is problematic. So I was just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
No, I think you're right on. And I think that this whole thing, I don't think Lincoln Riley looked at LSU and said, whoa, I don't want that game. I think he looked at the overall. Yeah. I think he looked at the overall picture of what USC usually plays in a given season, whether it's the Pac-12 or the Big Ten. I mean, look at USC's schedule last year with Washington and Oregon on the schedule, right? Throw in an LSU and Notre Dame, and right. You look at the same thing we're looking at this year, playing Penn State and Michigan and Wisconsin. You know, so it's not like joining the Big Ten was the issue. It's not, this had nothing to do with Lincoln Riley and Jennifer Cohn. This game was set up before Riley got there by Bone and Helton. And I'll tell you this, what's with that? One of the biggest things about the previous administration that drove me crazy is what on earth were we doing scheduling teams like Alabama and scheduling teams like now LSU? We have Ole Miss next year, not knowing. Especially the way we had played. I mean, I know USC has a history of playing. Again, they've never ducked away from teams, and I'm not saying SC should start ducking away from them. But in the current climate of the playoffs, you can lose 1-2 games and get into the playoffs. So, what is the purpose? Why on earth are you going to put teams like, USC playing LSU and Notre Dame the same season, and then playing a full Big Ten schedule? It absolutely makes no sense. And if you look around the SEC or the Big Ten, no one else is doing stupid stuff like that. And USC really needs to figure it out because, setting yourself up to fail like that, you're going to have those seasons where everything's going to come together and you're going to run through them. You have a strong team and you can beat anybody. But it's not about the individual matchups. Yeah. It's the body blows you take playing 4 really top teams in a season where the injuries are going to rack up. And if you haven't built up your roster, especially on both lines, that's going to become an issue. And so, I guess we can thank Clay Helton for one more thing out the door. It was setting up this year's schedule. Huh.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's like, look, we're expanding to a 12-team playoff to include more teams. But if at the same time, there's this disparity in schedule strength such that we have our schedule, Florida has their schedule, then Ohio State has a cupcake schedule. Well, that's not fair to us. And I think, though, based on the fact that our offense could suffer a 25% reduction in output. And if our defense just allows 20% points per game, we're still averaging 31 on offense and giving up 27 on defense. So my point is, there's reason to still be optimistic because Riley is a very good coach. We still have a good roster. And I think that's kind of how I feel about it. But thanks for taking my call, and good talking to you as always.
Always, Adam. Thank you so much for putting it with me. I'm sorry Matt could have been here to add a little more to the show, but appreciate your support always. And we'll talk to you next week. Fight on. Yeah, I'm gonna try to keep the calls rolling, guys, because we have about 5, and I can't stay on very, very long. So if you do want to call in, make sure you're calling in, have your question really quick so we can hit it, and I can move on to the next caller because I'm only here for probably about another anywhere 15 to 20 minutes. Hello, caller. Thanks for calling in. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, good afternoon, Tim. It's Augie calling.
Augie, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Just doing with this coastal haze down here.
Yeah, when's summer coming? You let me know that, Augie, and I'll be happy. I mean, I here in Southern California, by now we should have had a number of 80-degree sunny days. Don't get me wrong. I mean, today, the last couple of days have been sunny and 70, but we haven't had any of those like really warm summer days yet. But anyway, so the topics I threw out there, I mean, we can bring it to someone brought the Notre Dame thing, but we have a big recruiting weekend coming up. We got the Notre Dame, should they stay on our schedule? And then obviously the comments made by Matt Hayes about Lincoln Riley being afraid to play LSU.
It's good to hear a lot of naysayers or a lot of statics, but I think people they play too much in the hype or the noise, and I just believe I was earlier because there's a conflict right now. USC talking to Mama K, and I was going back and forth, but I've watched her before talk on another podcast, and she's phenomenal. She's like the soul of the team of the Mamas, Ohana Spirit. Like she should be the inspiration for other team players, the team mom. And, Notre Dame is tradition, East versus West. We always talk about the clash and so forth. I remember one time living on 41st and Hoover, right off, stone throw away from the Coliseum. I couldn't get reception in the TV, and I walked to a Ticketron, bought me a ticket, and I was in the end zone, and that was the year when USC won on Joe Montana's year. As a matter of fact, he brought him back second half. The USC went to a field goal, and that was just amazing to watch that. Or you can go back to and Anthony Davis, tearing it up and all that. But you got to have that just to keep, there's a lot of history, the rivalry, the talent, and it's good. It's good for football. And then the other thing is, people just need to be patient. That's I think a growing narrative going around. And Lincoln Riley, he made that paradigm shift. I think with Miller Time Moss, he can control the clock. They can be a little bit more methodical. That march, that Trojan march. You don't have to worry about trying to light up the scoreboard. But I think they could do it methodically, and then in the rest time needed to the defense, not having to do it go for a big play and so forth. And I see it coming about, and I see this defense, just solidifying that, just this whole paradigm shift, and that's probably the operative word. We made a paradigm shift, but it was for the better, and they saw the numbers. They know we need to make improvement, and Lincoln Riley made a heady decision, and we move forward.
Yeah, I think he did. And it's clear that he has invested in defense. And after he was embarrassed last year, he made it very clear that everything he's doing forward is going to make this an elite defense. And he's put his money where his mouth is. And we're beginning to see that. I think, unfortunately, it may not happen in 1 year. But if you guys are peeking around the corner and looking at the recruits that USC is pulling in, it's just an insane amount of talent that USC is going to have visiting at over the next 3 weekends. You're talking just numerous 5-stars coming in and 4-stars from all over the country. They know how to do this. They've done it a couple of years in a row. I think with the staff, finally, defensive staff in place, these guys will be able to see where their role in this defense is going to be. Now, you're going to have a situation where if they show up and flop, that's, these kids are going to want to see some proof of concept. They're going to want to see some improvement. And I know they're going to see improvement. The question I worry about, again, is depth. But, then you could also sell that depth piece. Think about it. A lot of these guys that they are recruiting are defensive linemen, and it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to get some of those early recruits to commit along the next couple of weeks, like they've had some big weekends in the past, and then hang on to them throughout the season as people come at them with NIL and come at possibly if USC has some struggles if they do get some injuries up front. But Augie, thank you as always for calling in. The calls are stacking up. I've got to move on. Appreciate you calling. Fight on. And
One last
I got to go, Augie.
One last comment. I'd like to. All right, go for it. Go for it.
All right. We'll talk to you next week.
Go forward.
All right. Fight on.
Fight on.
All right. So that the phone lines, there's just two people. I gotta try to be a little bit quicker because I do have to move through the calls. I had one person drop. I apologize for that. I'm gonna try to get at least 2 or 3 more calls in. So go ahead right now. It's your opportunity to call. Number 888-997-4539. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Tim, it's Dave from Iowa. All right, I'll make it quick because I know you got a lot of calls. So the reason why, USC and these other schools do these big-time non-conference matchups is because you get a major payday. I just looked it up. We're going to get $5 million playing LSU. For the other team, for the other non-conference games, how much are we going to be getting? If anything, we're going to be paying those BFUs, so to speak. So that's what it is. And at the end of the day, it's a business, and hey, we need to make money somehow. I mean, it kind of goes to this point, in terms of like, it just goes to that point. I mean, hey, this is how you make money, and what fans can call it a sacrifice and no faith or whatever, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. What do you think?
Well, okay. So a couple things. One, USC doesn't need money that bad that they're going to put themselves in a competitive disadvantage. You have to admit, I agree with you, $5 million, but what's $5 million in the budget? It's not really, it's not like it would be as important.
It's a defensive coordinator. It's a defensive coordinator salary.
In the grand scheme of things, what's the percentage of the entire budget is my point, Dave. And I agree, $5 million, no matter what, is a big chunk of change. But to put your program and a beginning and building of a program in a situation where you're light up front, but apparently the story is he's been trying to dodge it for 2. By the way, I'm not giving this thing credence at all. I'm saying it's not outside the realm possibility that it was explored that maybe that the USC wasn't ready. The new administration comes in and said, we don't want this game. Let's try to get rid of it. What I'm addressing in the article is the fact that they're making it seem like USC's on their hands and knees doing whatever they can to get out of this game. And I don't think it's that extreme. That's my only point on that. I think that you do want to take a paycheck here and there. I mean, no one's going to turn away $5 million, but you have to look big picture as well. And if they keep lining up, their schedule. Now let's face it. This year they play Michigan on the road and they have Penn State. But they're missing teams like Oregon. They're missing Ohio State, and the game they have won the really tough road game is going to be that Michigan game. I know they travel to Minnesota. I know they travel to Maryland as well. But these games aren't going to be the caliber of games you're going to have. USC needs to look and strategically schedule. Look no farther. Who's been dominating forever? The SEC. They don't schedule like this, and they do it for a reason. And they only play 8. They only play 8 conference games. USC plays 9 conference games in the Big Ten. They'll be traveling every other year back and forth to South Bend, as well as traveling to road games in the Big Ten footprint. USC needs to figure out how to schedule properly, and I do believe they will going forward.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I got two things to say, Tim. First of all, you're partially wrong because Georgia did play Clemson first week of the season, I believe, 2 years ago.
Okay, that's one game. Wait. Hey, don't talk over me, bud. It's my show. Really quickly, you just gave me one example of one team playing one team. That's not exactly telling me that I'm wrong, but go ahead.
Well, okay. Sorry. Okay. Well, and do you want more teams? What about Auburn and Oregon?
Let me say this to you.
Week 1.
Let me say this to you. I didn't say they never play. Do you understand that as well, Dave? I'm saying they don't make it a habit to do this. I've seen teams doing it more often in the SEC of recent, but they're still only playing 8 conference games. And they're doing it now probably more often because there is a 12-team playoff now. I'm talking about when there was a 4-team playoff. Why they did it? To protect their wins and to pad their stats, to pad their resume. That's why they did it. Not by going out and did these challenging games and going through a challenging schedule.
Okay. All right. That's fair. One last thing, Tim. In today's world, kids want to be on TV, national televised games. Do kids want to be in the big spotlight in the beginning of the season in Vegas or hosting a Utah State at a poor time stamp?
I don't know. What school do you know in all of, and go through your whole, you like to talk about the SEC, go through the SEC that doesn't have at least one Utah State on their schedule. You can't play.
Wait, sorry, what was that?
So you brought up the Utah State game, right? And I'm saying that every program in America has those cupcake games. It's not like USC. The problem is the opposite with USC. They have one cupcake game and two incredibly difficult games that are non-conference that most schools don't do. You named the Georgia playing Clemson, but who else did they play out of conference in that? I mean, did they play Georgia Tech? Oh wow, that's amazing. I mean, they're not putting the kind of schedule up that USC often does. Look again next year. USC will be playing Ole Miss and LSU. And Notre Dame in the same season, as well as their conference schedule in the Big Ten. I'm not saying put a bunch of pansies up there, but you have Notre Dame, and Notre Dame is your marquee game. And it's not like this isn't the Ty Willingham Notre Dame. This has been a Notre Dame program that's been the top 15, top 20 pretty much for the past 10 years. So, you have that tough game every year, and then you're going to have your conference tough games. You don't need to add another tough game. That's my point.
Gotcha. Okay, I understand. And hey, I just want to apologize. In terms of earlier, I didn't mean to talk over you. I was just passionate about hey, you play football to play football and compete, no matter what, if it's against a cupcake or a preseason top 20 team.
Absolutely, Dave. Thanks for calling. Hope to hear from you soon.
Yep.
All right. Let's grab. Sorry, we lost another caller, but we have two more in the queue. I think we'll grab these. If you want to call in quickly because I don't know how long I'll be here. Hello, caller. Thanks for your time and being here tonight. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yo, Tim. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
This your boy Keith from Irvine.
How you doing?
Good, Tim.
I'm good.
Doing great, man. Doing great.
Just trying to get out of here, to be honest with you. But I do want to get this show is my favorite show by far of the week. Just want to jam through some calls really quick because I know Friday night there is a core like maybe 50 of you guys that call in every week or tune in every week. Want to make sure we get that continuity and have you guys every Friday, 6 o'clock. You guys, 6 o'clock. We are moving to 7 p.m. next week, by the way, before I forget that. Remember, guys, so if you guys are the regulars, I know you're out there and I appreciate all of your support. You guys know that we will be having the same show, but we're going to move from 6 o'clock to 7. The sun's staying out a little bit later. That gives me a little more time to get home, get settled in before we hit the show. Sorry, Keith, go ahead.
All good, Tim. All good. And thank you for that PSA. We'll be here at 7. I'll make it quick. Look, I'm not mad at Lincoln. Coach LFR, we're trying to get out of the game. It was definitely, there's some truth to that. I read an article, ABC was like, no way. No. There's too much money on the table. You're not going anywhere. And I can certainly see with us going to the Big Ten why Lincoln would make that push. With that being said, and I'll wrap it up here, we're about to dog stomp, mollywop, curb stomp LSU, okay? We're about to smack them boys all across the field, best believe, and I'll take your response off the air. Thank you, Tim. Love you, brother.
Yeah, love you too, Keith. Thanks for calling in, man. Yeah, I don't think there's a game on the schedule that USC can't win. I don't think that's the situation whatsoever. Caller, hang on one second. That's not the situation at all. USC could beat anybody on the schedule. The issue is going to be is what is the depth situation during the season, and can USC, with issues and the defense as a whole has gotten insanely better. The secondary, the cornerback play. Wait till you see this secondary. It's going to be completely different than what we saw last year when guys couldn't even get lined up. They were broken. They're missed assignments all over the field. Guys running wide open in the secondary. That's been cleaned up. Issues I have is, and just because I'm not going to put out there in the universe, but we've had issues staying healthy at linebacker. That's been a thing that's kind of plagued USC for a little while now. We can stay healthy at linebacker, and this defensive line they cobbled together. I think that USC can beat anybody on their schedule. my concern is again, that depth piece. And because we don't have that depth, will guys be getting extra reps throughout the season that begin to take their toll later in the season? So sorry, caller. Thank you for waiting. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Will. What's going on, Tim?
Will, I'm doing good. Just throwing together, you name it. It's gone wrong today. We had some technical difficulties. We couldn't get Matt onto the show, but we're just gonna soldier through this thing. And reminding everyone again, next week at 7 p.m. will be same show with Matt. We'll get the technical issues set up, and we will take your calls next Friday, as always, but not 6 o'clock, at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern. Will, sorry. So what are your thoughts on all? I know you have a lot of thoughts on all this stuff. Let's start with the Notre Dame thing, because I know that's probably near and dear to your heart.
All right. People just hate on ND for the clicks. Like, I don't even think Coward believes what he's saying in this whole situation. I just think he's doing it for the clicks. He's like, he knows that like ND fans on Twitter, they always like hate watch anything that's trashing on the team, and the rivalry isn't going to go away anytime soon. That's not.
Yeah. Well. Okay. So. Yeah, I think that Colin does say make inflammatory comments from time to time just to shake it up a little bit. I mean, there's no doubt about that, right? I mean, he's done it in the past, and he's doing it now. But well, let's be real about this. Think about USC's situation. USC every other year is adding another trip to the Midwest. They already have so they have their conference games. So let's say four of them, let's say they have 4 conference games. They're traveling 4 times to the Midwest every year. By having Notre Dame not in the conference, that means that every other year they'll be traveling out to the Midwest again, making it a 5th trip out to the Midwest. We got to get your Irish into the Big Ten. I don't see a world where USC doesn't play the Irish. I just don't. I don't see that happening. But I wouldn't be totally against. Will, don't get too mad at me. USC kind of holding Notre Dame's feet to the fire, because for a long time, it was really Notre Dame that legitimized, early on. Sorry, I should say a long time. Early on, it was Notre Dame that legitimized USC in those early battles, and how USC kind of came onto the scene in the late 20s and 30s with Howard Jones and Rockney and all those games. But right now, the ACC is a mess for Notre Dame. I know they're not a full member, but the Big Ten, USC is going to have and can strike up some rivalries with some other Big Ten teams, which could cause some friction between administrations, between USC having to travel out there every year. That's the only big issue I have with it. Plus, I was saying that you need to keep Notre Dame and maybe not take that LSU, not take the in the past where we played Alabama or a Texas, right? Texas home and Alabama neutral site. I'm saying USC don't do those games in the future. But look what it does to USC scheduled alumni. Then we'll be playing Notre Dame, and it's great to play Notre Dame. But then we got to play 2 other cupcakes, and we don't get to spice it up at all. Do you know what I mean? I wonder how many years of that will be a tenable situation for USC. What do you see down the road for Notre Dame?
I think Notre Dame will be eventually forced to join the Big Ten in the next 10 years. I mean, I just hate to say it, but with the current climate of college sports, I hate it. Like, I just wish I felt like when like Utah first joined the Pac-12, that's when I wanted it. Like, I'm like, this is great. Let's just keep it like this. Let's keep the Big East alive too. That would have been my ultimate happiness. But the way it is now, I think the 2 super conferences are inevitable.
Okay. Yeah, I think that eventually.
So let me ask you this, Tim.
Yeah. Hurry up, I gotta get rolling.
Okay, sorry. Well, I want to trash on Kelly, but it's okay. What would you like it to be at the end of the year every year? Like Notre Dame USC, because I know Stanford's the ACC team now, so I think the Irish should be able to keep that as a conference game and play whenever they want. Would you like it at the end of the year all the time?
That was one of the things I talked about with the travel schedule and the issue of having an additional game going out to Notre Dame. tradition is tradition, right? But the schedule has already changed once. SC used to play Notre Dame. I know you know this, but for those of you out there, USC used to play Notre Dame in South Bend in November. However, it was just so damn cold, and guys were literally getting frostbite and sick.
Wherever you go in the Big Ten, though.
Well, let's see. This year we don't play anybody. We don't play anybody back east after I think October. So there are no November games, and it may happen, and probably going to happen to USC eventually. But going back to what I was saying, originally USC said to Notre Dame, "Hey, we want to continue this, but we'll visit you. Tell you what, we'll come out there in October. We're not going to come out there in November because we don't want to come out in the middle of snowstorms." So, and that was changed. So the time was changed. So there is a precedent for the game being changed. And what I proposed earlier was, since the USC has to play these games, maybe they move the game to like a week 0 game when we go to South Bend, when we travel. That way it spreads out the conference play. So Notre Dame is not right in the middle of conference play. You move it to the beginning, and then maybe you have 2 home out of conference games, and then you start your conference schedule. I think that could work out. I think the way they have it now, I don't know. I don't speak obviously for anyone at USC, but I can't see how USC will continue again to play 4 road games out in the Big Ten and every other year go out to South Bend. That's making it a 5th game. I just don't think that that's in USC's best interest. I am not for the rivalry ending.
All right. I have to say one thing about LSU. I know there's other callers here. USC has put together a good defensive staff. Like I'm buying in on USC's defense. I think you guys are going to be much better. I think there's some questions about nose tackle, of course. And the offense is going to look different it's going to be different with Caleb. But with LSU's defensive hires, I mean, yeah, the guy at Missouri had a good year last year, but like I was looking at the staff and I was like, who the heck are these guys? So the Trojans should be able to handle LSU's defense for sure and come out with a win. I wouldn't be scared if I was you going into that game.
All right, it's callers. No more phone calls. We're past 7. We're at 7 o'clock, so we're not taking any more phone calls. As far as that, yeah, USC is lucky in that, yes. So USC has a completely new defensive coaching staff. Was going to take some, I don't care how well he did at UCLA last year. It's still that onboarding situation they're going to have at USC. But USC's lucky to like you said, LSU is bringing on their defensive staff. You have a situation in Michigan where they're bringing almost a whole new coaching staff at Michigan. So there are going to be opportunities, for USC to take advantage of the fact that there are going to be some new staffs out there. So I'm really happy. People got so concentrated on the nose tackle situation at USC, they forgot about all the players USC brought in, and it also the biggest difference will be with the coaching staff and a new defensive coordinator. But thanks, Will. Appreciate you calling as always. I hope you call back next week.
Thanks, Tim.
All right. So this last call, and then we're going to call night. Please do not call in. This is our last one. And then I got to grab a couple of things. Caller, can you hold on? Hi, caller. Hold on 1 second for me really quick and make sure if you could turn down. Where's that? I mean, as a child, my bad. Hang on 1 second really quick while I do something. Adam, thank you so much for becoming or renewing as a member of the channel. Appreciate you as always. Again, being here and all the support you give the show. Really appreciate you every week with the calls and also, again, memberships. You guys,
I think I'm going to have to hang up and call right back. Everything sounds like a robot.
Okay. So appreciate you guys all being here. I think we're probably going to call it a night. I'll wait for this call to come right back, hopefully, so he can get through. I want to thank everybody in the chat. I know I have not been taking information in the chat, but juggling phone calls and everything else makes it a little bit difficult to hit that chat. But appreciate you guys. Make sure you're checking out. There's gonna be a lot of news coming out after this weekend. There's some great recruiting weekend. We might get a couple of commits during the week. So make sure you're watching the channels as always. Hang on 1 second. Caller, can you hear me better now?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay. Hey, hang on 1 second. Make sure you check it out. Gabe, if you're still here, thank you so much for checking in. Gabe will have videos, you guys. Carter, everyone has, trust me, this community that we have is wide, and it will be covered. There will be a number of commits, hopefully over the next 3 weeks for sure. Make sure you're checking out the channels for those commits. And as we get moving through the summer, there's going to be more and more news coming our way. Appreciate everyone being here tonight. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Dan calling from LA. This is my second time ever calling in.
Well, Dan, thanks for calling back.
Yeah, I was late listening to I don't even know what I missed because I came in late. I missed the notification. So did you guys already talk about the LSU thing already?
We bounced around that. What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, I was wanted to say I think this whole thing is perfect for USC and their team. This whole thing of everyone, because everyone has spent a narrative on USC is scared of LSU, the program is scared, and all the SEC guys they've flipped the switch and they turn the narrative to make it seem like USC is scared. In my mind, I think this is perfect for the team because now until the first game, all they're going to hear all summer during training camp is that they're scared of LSU. Why are they trying to opt out of the game? LSU, are you really scared of LSU? Are you trying to run from LSU? They're probably going to interview the players, ask them why they're scared of LSU. Leading up to that game, they're probably going to start doing it again. So I really think that is a big motivation factor for the team. And I think just because of that, I don't think they're going to beat you at LSU now. And that's why I think Brian Kelly is probably really mad that actually came out because all summer they're going to hear it. USC is scared of LSU. Well, I think that's perfect bulletin board material.
Yeah, very well could be. I mean, what I would say also is I think they're less than a touchdown favorite. And that sure, yes, we lose Caleb, but they lose Jade Daniels. I mean, there's a lot to go in this game. There's a lot of uncertainty in this game. And like I said earlier, I don't know if you caught it or not, but there's nobody on this schedule at USC can't beat. It's not like you look at anybody on the schedule and go, oh, well, that's a loss. It's just not out there at this point. Again, it's going to be, can USC stay healthy for the duration, especially in key positions along the defensive line and offensive line. It could go sideways very quick. We do not have depth on our lines. It can go sideways really quick with a couple of key losses. But barring that, injuries are part of football. Barring that, I'm with you. I think that USC absolutely, if Miller plays the way we saw him in the Holiday Bowl, we know what we have at wide receiver. We brought in just talent all the way across the defense and the defensive coaching staff that's going to be superior to most of the teams we're going to play. I really cannot wait to see what Danton Lynn does with these pieces. Who knows? We're all worried about the middle of the defense. Maybe that will be mitigated. That's why you have defensive coordinators to sort those things out for us. It's going to be interesting to see how USC plays LSU in Las Vegas. Again, as we wrap the show up, I think and put a bow on it, the LSU situation, I don't think it's beyond the realm possibility that someone at USC at some point reached out to LSU and said, hey, maybe let's not have this game. That's possible. But what I am pretty sure about is, and until someone corroborates it, is the fact that USC, as the article tried to make it sound, hasn't been trying desperately, the words they use, to get out of this game for 2 years. I find that very, very unlikely.
I agree with everything you said. And I don't blame them if it did happen for them trying to get out of the game because they probably saw the new Big Ten schedule. It's like, why does USC have to play the hardest schedule in the nation when of those guys down in the SEC and other schools are playing cupcakes 4 times a year? They'll have 2 or 3 hard teams, and then they have the conference schedule and about 5 cupcakes. So it's like, and they go to the playoffs. Why does USC have to have the hardest schedule? So I wouldn't blame them for trying to move the LSU game, but if they did, it wasn't because they're scared of them. And that's why I just think by this coming out and the players hearing that they're scared all summer long is going to be an extra motivation factor, especially because I've rewatched that Miller Moss game against everyone said it's just one game, but I've rewatched it over the course of this year since we have had time, and that guy has an it factor. Like it's just like you watch all the quarterbacks you think are like this is probably one good game, but just how he controlled the pocket, how he controlled when they can run a scheme, how he was avoiding a rush and just throwing on a run. He has the NFL potential. He just has that factor. You can tell in his eyes. He just wants to compete.
Yeah. And again, I think every program in America should have one really tough top name out of conference game. You should do it. What you shouldn't do is have 2 out of conference tough games. USC playing Notre Dame. That's awesome. USC playing LSU, that's gonna be great. I'm gonna be at that game for sure at Allegiant. But playing both of those in the same season and then playing a 9-game conference schedule in the Big Ten it's not just even about win or loss or your probability of winning those 2 games. USC could win both of those games, but what will the toll be again throughout the season? So they play these games, and then let's say they have a good season, then they would have to play a conference championship game against, I don't know, Ohio State or Michigan or Oregon, and then if they got into the playoffs, then they got to play into the playoffs, and most teams are going to have those, but what they don't have is like in the SEC, they might have 1 game and 3 cupcakes and 1 cupcake game in the middle of November. Or if you're in the Big Ten, there's a number of Big Ten schools. Take a look at some of those all out of conference schedules for Big Ten teams and tell me they look anything like what USC is doing. I'm saying I just want it to be kind of an even keel across the board. And it looks like USC put themselves in a hole. And then, no one made them take that game. I'm glad that the people that did that are no longer here. But it's not like USC, 1, doesn't have a good point, and then 2, they have not been begging for 2 years to get out of this thing. But speaking of begging to get out of here, thank you, Dan, so much for calling in. I'm going to get out of here. Appreciate it. Hopefully you call back your second call.
I would say my last thing would say, I would say my last thing is USC just needs to win games. You win games, just like in every sport. Winning cures all. Recruiting, all this negativity, all this negative talk, all this craziness. Just win games. If they win, these people go away because they won't have nothing to say. They have to find another team to jump on.
That's right. Yeah, great point. Yeah, winning will fix everything. That's the last piece of this thing. USC has been talking about development. I do think they have the coaches for that development. That's in place. USC's NIL is getting better. They have that piece together. Next thing will be is just proof of concept, getting out there on the field and showing the country that USC is going to get back to its winning ways. A lot of people always talk about Reggie Bush. A lot of people always talk about Carson Palmer. Everyone talks about the offenses and Lendale White. What they don't talk about is why we won all those games. Had a hell of a lot to do with those amazing defenses that Pete Carroll put together. And the USC going back to Robinson and all the way back to John McKay. USC's great teams were built on defense as well. And you can't win national championships without a national championship caliber defense. I think that USC is on a way to doing that. Appreciate everybody who called in. Thank you so much to Jackson who started off the show. Adam, appreciate you. Augie from Oxnard, Dave from Iowa, Keith from Irvine, Will and Dee, thank you for calling in. And lastly, Dan from LA, the second call. Appreciate it. I hope you call in for a third time. Appreciate all of you guys being here. I thought I was only going to be here for 40 minutes. I've been here for about an hour now. Remember, we had the show Monday night with Mark Rogers on the Trojan Conquest Live. Make sure you check us out. I'm sure we'll go into depth about these topics on Monday as well. And then again, remember, we are changing next week. Same show. Matt will be here. But what we're going to do is we're going to move, instead of it starting at 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 Eastern, we're going to move to 7 o'clock Pacific, 10 Eastern. All right. Appreciate all of you. Thank you. Sorry I couldn't get into the chat a little bit more. It's just kind of weird trying to fix the on the fly, fix the setup here on the screen. Make sure you check in Matt and I out at Trojans Wire. I dropped an article about the Notre Dame game thing. If you guys will go over to Trojans Wire, search up Tim Prangley, Trojans Wire, you'll find that article. Appreciate you all being here, and fight on, you guys.